Hello, I am Alain Tello Robledo. I have written the article, The End of Israeli-American Dominance, The Dawn of a New Era, as English is my third language, and this message is so important. Out of respect for the English-speaking audience, the narration will use the voice of Hollis Calder through the 11th Labs platform. Thank you.
The end of Israeli-American dominance, the dawn of a new era. The imminent union of the world's peoples is inevitable, just like the logical result of a simple addition. 1 + 1 = 2. For the past few months, the world has been witnessing the final desperate moves of U.S. imperialism. We must not forget that the people of the United States are also victims of the imperialist actions of their leaders, the majority of whom are funded by Israel. Plus, BRICS Plus, an alliance founded by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and constantly bringing in other countries, is the alternative for the transition toward a new universal world order. BRICS Plus rivals the G7 and already encompasses more than half of the world's population and over 35% of global gross domestic product. BRICS Plus plans to create a common currency for the alliance, a threat to the US dollar, currently the world's primary currency. Plus, countries are regaining their sovereignty and no longer accept manipulation and threats from the United States. Plus, governments' economic systems are no longer sustainable. Increased life expectancy plus declining birth rates equals fewer working people to pay for pensions and financially support their countries. Plus, the European Union and Russia will realize that the future calls for a commercial and political union. Russia will be Western Europe's main supplier of gas and oil. The European Union will re-establish, as never before, trade relations with Russia, brothers of the same continent. Plus, the European Union, all South American countries, Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea, African nations, and others will form strategic alliances with China and India, with the option to join the BRICS Plus coalition. Plus, the evident climate change, which will further alter the climate in the coming years, will force farmers to adapt or even migrate for the good of all, because all of humanity depends on their organic produce for food. Plus, the people of the United States of America will unite with the universal union of the world, a major sign of transcendental peace for humanity. Equals the beginning of the irreversible transition toward a united humanity. Equals an awakening of consciousness, recognizing that we all share the same destiny as this planet that journeys day and night through the unknown universe. Equals total tolerance and respect for different cultures, beliefs, and religions. Equals the present of the new universal world will erase the dark memories of the past, naturally fostering reconciliation through transcendental understanding. Equals the realization that all peoples across the globe seek the same thing, a planet that has regained its balance, justice, health, peace, and harmony for the present moment and for future generations. Practical application of the manuscript. New World, coming very soon. The full-color manuscript book is sold at cost. Link in the description. Original song, free music, video clip. The New World is here. Link in the description. In 2016, through the Universal Message published in my third book, Transcendental Training, I shared my vision that the great transcendental change would begin in 2021 to 2022. COVID-19, the Russia-Ukraine war, Israel's genocide of Palestinians, and the outrageous and violent actions of the Trump administration of the United States of America toward the entire world confirm this. Alain Tello Robledo. current world situation, division. In the near future, union. The foundation of the great shift in the world order. After World War II, the world was divided into two sides: the United States, capitalism on one side, and the Soviet Union, communism on the other, giving rise to the arms race of the Cold War, 1947 to 1991. An intense military competition between the United States and the USSR for nuclear and conventional supremacy. In 1949, NATO was founded in Washington by 12 Western countries. It was initially created to halt Soviet expansionism. Since the dissolution of the USSR and the end of the Cold War in 1991, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, has persisted. Despite the disappearance of its original raison d'etre, it has expanded into former Eastern Bloc countries and former republics of the Soviet Union, threatening the sovereignty and security of today's Russia. NATO has proven to be the United States' instrument for asserting itself globally and becoming the world's leading military and economic power, with the US dollar serving as the primary currency for international trade. Today, there is no doubt that the US administration has triggered numerous wars, revolutions, and regime changes around the world, far from its borders, always for economic and strategic reasons, and above all, to protect its worldwide economic and military supremacy. In exchange for protection, much like a mercenary would do, the United States has established around 800 military bases in more than 80 countries and territories. The two atomic bombs dropped on Japan in August 1945 by the U.S., causing more than 200,000 civilian deaths, were a message sent to its adversaries, a message that continues to this day. The political, economic, and military aggression committed by the United States and Israel over so many decades has fueled dissident and terrorist movements around the world, particularly in the Middle East. These include armed groups and countries seeking to protect themselves or to exact revenge for the crimes and injustices committed during a dark history of Western occupations. To defend itself against the NATO invasion, in 2022, Russia partially invaded Ukraine, a situation that continues to this day to prevent the NATO threat from establishing itself at its borders. Russia has participated in wars, committing crimes and deadly acts against civilians of all ages, but none on the scale of the United States. Other countries around the world have participated in wars, also committing deadly acts against civilians, often under duress, as members of NATO controlled by the United States. War itself should not exist. NATO countries have portrayed Russia and China as communist enemies to Western public opinion, perpetuating outdated stereotypes from the 1950s and 1960s. Undoubtedly, the West is viewed as the capitalist enemy by the public in Russia and China. Governments manipulate the media to keep their people divided. Freedom of expression is severely and publicly suppressed in China and Russia, according to Western media, but the freedom of expression that Western democracies loudly proclaim is also suppressed, albeit more discreetly and in private. Blackmail of all kinds silences voices that threaten democratic systems. How many natural deaths and suicides hide another truth? Our smartphones and the internet record and monitor the masses. For what purpose, other than advertising? The Chinese and Russian dictatorships of the past are evolving toward a fusion of democratic communism, gradually improving citizens' quality of life over the years. Western democracies, on the other hand, are moving in a negative direction, with the middle class's quality of life slowly deteriorating. Today, thanks to social media, we can see that Russia, the Russian Federation, is a vast country with highly developed social services, infrastructure, technology, etc. And as for China, it is no longer a secret. It is at least 30 years ahead of all Western countries. China discreet and silent, has overcome the major difficulties of its past to become, since 2014 to 2017, the world's leading economic power in terms of purchasing power parity, PPP. It produces a greater volume of goods and services than the United States when prices are adjusted to a comparable level. China is considered the world's factory. That is the real threat to the United States of America. China. Since 2018, the Trump administration has used tariffs as a central tool of its economic policy. Massive tariffs have been imposed on China on steel, aluminum, and Chinese goods to boost domestic production, while also targeting all imports from other countries, whether allies or not. The Trump administration has declared economic war on the entire world as the U.S. economy is in decline. 2026, the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran is illegal and is widely contested under international law. Legal framework. The United Nations Charter, Article 2, Paragraph 4, prohibits the use of force against the sovereignty of another state, except with the authorization of the Security Council or in self-defense in the event of a direct armed attack, Article 51, which is not the case here. Criticism. Many observers describe the strikes as preemptive and therefore illegal. Senator Ed Markey called these actions illegal and unconstitutional. UN position. The UN has reiterated that it is prohibited to strike civilian infrastructure. There is no doubt that behind the claims of self-defense made by the United States and Israel to justify their brutal attack on Iran, which killed many civilians and children, lie their indirect attacks on China as they attempt to cut off its energy supply lines, gas and oil, by blocking the Strait of Hormuz. Since NATO countries refused to join the United States in this illegal war, the Americans blocked the Strait of Hormuz, affecting 20% of global gas and oil distribution. They hope this will force NATO countries to participate in the conflict, as they are affected by this illegitimate blockade, coercion. But China is not alone. Russia, India, and other countries will supply it with the necessary energy resources using alternative transport routes, as well as, if necessary, military support from the BRICS plus alliance countries. The United States is isolating itself from the world. The American people do not want war. They do not want this situation. A growing number of Americans are considering or actually leaving the United States, driven by the political climate. Online searches for information on moving abroad skyrocketed after the 2024 election, with a 1,500% increase, and notable departures to Europe, Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, and Canada. In 2025, more than 180,000 U.S. citizens left the country, a trend that could increase in 2026. After so many decades during which the United States, through NATO, has exerted enormous pressure on China and Russia, China is now significantly disrupting the U.S. economy without resorting to aggression or military threats. The current global geopolitical situation, shattered into 1,000 pieces by the arrogance and violence of U.S. imperialism, is the catalyst for the end of the American economic monopoly, which has disregarded its Western European and Canadian allies, as well as Japan and South Korea, among others. Israel's genocide of the Palestinian people with U.S. support has revealed to the entire world the hidden face of the cruel imperialism of these two countries. The Trump administration of the United States of America is threatening to invade Greenland, peacefully or by force, to seize its resources. The Trump administration of the United States of America has even threatened to annex Canada, a neighboring country and once its closest ally and friend, to seize its vast resources, as Canada is its primary supplier of crude oil, natural gas, electricity, aluminum, steel, critical minerals, automotive products, food, and timber. The Trump administration of the United States of America plans to expel the entire Palestinian people from their lands and their country in order to transform it into a luxury tourist destination. Israel is currently putting this plan into action. All the threats mentioned above, and many others, confirm that the United States of America has a very violent and aggressive government that seeks only its own interests. They disregard international laws when they do not suit their interests. They enforce the law of the jungle. Future peaceful and strategic actions by Western countries and BRICS Plus will isolate the United States of America, causing the dollar to lose its position as the world's leading currency. The recent courageous decision by the Mexican government to join BRICS Plus, setting an example for the rest of Latin America, which will soon follow suit, and the determination of the Canadian government to declare direct trade war on the United States of America by turning to other alliances, confirm the first steps toward freeing countries from U.S. control. Everything will happen very quickly according to the perception of transcendental space-time, where a single day can correspond to a year, or even more, or less. The people of the United States of America are a strong and persevering people, but they are victims of a very ambitious government. The American people and government are indispensable, like all peoples of this world, for universal unity to take place naturally. End of wars, end of crimes against humanity, end of injustices. The mistakes of the past will fade away as humanity unites for the sake of future generations and the planet that shelters and sustains us all. Only people can transform the threats to entire humanity into a future of peace, unity, and harmony among all the peoples of the planet, our shared home, our shared destiny. Practical application of the manuscript, New World, coming very soon. The full-color manuscript book is sold at cost. Link in the description. Original song, free music video clip, The New World is Here. Link in the description.
I hope this article has helped you understand that all people want to live in a united and peaceful world. As I predicted in 2016, darkness will disappear from Earth in 2041. Thank you for helping me spread this universal message for the benefit of all beings on the planet. We are Alain Tello Robledo, Beingist.